Welcome back live. Ladies and gentlemen, finally, after a struggle of 21 minutes or so, we are back live on the air with the Mythicist Milwaukee Show. I'm your host, Rob Moore, the Deacon of Doubt. With me, as always, Brian Edward, the Imam of Incertitude. What's going on today, Brian?
I'm going to invest in networking for dummies, so perhaps we can avoid this in the future. I need to learn this.
It doesn't help that we're all hungover from last night's solstice party, too. I'm sure it really made us about as sharp as a dull old drawer of blunt butter knives today as we try to wade through the technical morass. That is our podcast, which we do every Sunday at 2 p.m. here in the Central Time Zone. Approaching, as we say, the very nadir of the sun as it starts working its way back up in its rebirth as the solstice is here. Happy solstice, everybody. And we want to remind everyone you can find us on YouTube and on iTunes now. Find us, follow us, like us. And if you like what we do, support the program. We have a Patreon page. You can patronize our Patreon and pledge pennies or pounds. As much as you can or as little as you'd like, every week, every day, every show, however they set it up, please do what you can to support the effort here. And the effort is to bring you interesting secular guests from around the globe, and not always secular, but those that we can relate at least to the concerns of the secular community and the agenda of the atheistic movement as we march forward in time. And today we have a couple of folk on the line. And they are with the Foundation Beyond Belief. We're very happy to have with us Noelle George and Rebecca Vitsmun. Say hi, guys. You there?
Hello.
Hi, guys.
Thanks for joining us. Yeah, Rebecca, we're going to start right with you. You are as Noelle has stated, you're the star of the show. Of course, you became instantly famous on TV, on CNN, and it's a funny story for me because I happen to, my last name is Moore, and I happened to just be scanning and saw Moore, Oklahoma. Which is, if I'm remembering right, is where it all happened. It was a tornado, and there you were with Wolf Blitzer, who famously stuck his idiot foot in his mouth and asked you if you thanked the Lord for having survived the tornado when there was probably neighbors of yours injured or worse right there nearby. And you, of course, said, I'm actually an atheist, and instantly became, kind of a poster child for the movement, I think, by having the bravery to out yourself like that and answer what was a flabbergastingly stupid question. Take us to your perspective. You've probably been asked about it a million times, and we all just looked at it again on YouTube.
No,
tell us what happened.
Funny.
Go ahead.
It was pretty funny, honestly. It was, in retrospect, like, even I'll look at it like months later, somebody will tag me and I'll rewatch it and I'll be like, that is so funny. But really, right, I had been I had been brought on the show because I saved my life and the life of my son. And so there was a lot of horrible stuff going on, but they were like, oh, this story is beautiful. Mother saves child. This will be really good right now while everybody's facing so much devastation. And so I had been talking for like 9 minutes about the experience of, being in my house and knowing I was about to die and, how I got out and everything like that. And then at the end, he tried to close with Anders because he was like, he said, say, I'm Anders and this is CNN. No, well, Anders had been mimicking earlier before we went on. So I think he thought it was a safe bet to ask Anders to repeat after him, but Anders wasn't having any of it. So he just stared blankly at the camera. And then Wolf had to come up with something fast because it's like into the interview. He's live on television. Like this baby just blankly staring at a camera, So he went for what he went for, and he went for it quickly, So he went with, we're happy you're here. You got to thank the Lord, right? Do you thank the Lord? Yeah, and so
it's really verbatim how it was, and I there's a sense of that he's kind of lost for what to go to next. And
he doesn't know what to do with himself, so he's just like God moment, right? We're in Oklahoma, I'm there.
Now, what is your sense of his
Huh?
What's your sense of his background on that? Do you think he's a believer? Do you think he thought it would sell at the moment? Is he
told that he's actually Jewish?
That's what I figured.
Mm-hmm.
And so he probably did think it was a safe bet. I'm like I'm a stay-at-home mom, and I was taking care of my kid, and
Oklahoma.
Oklahoma and all that stuff. And I just survived a tragedy, and so a lot of people might go that direction. And also he had been interviewing people all day. And if you look through the clips, like there's people who like get in a little group hug praying with him or something at some point. So I think that he had been going through the same motions, just a different story, person after person. So yeah.
Did he feel like an idiot afterwards? Did he?
If you watch the video right after I say I'm an atheist, he like does a weird, awkward dance. Like he holds his little paper and he's, but I laugh, and it breaks the tension, and then everything's fine. And then I said, I don't blame anybody for thanking the Lord. And he said, of course not. So, it broke the tension, and then it also broke the stereotype, I guess, that I was going to be mad about him saying that. And so I was like, meh, if people want to sit there and say, I'm glad that you're alive, that sounds good to me.
Right. It helps break that angry atheist stereotype. You've got a wonderful smile. You look good in the video. So, that helps. It's weird because Lord can be...
Right, I'm holding a baby laughing. I'm an atheist. Ha, 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 this is my kid.
And Lord could have been anything. Jewish, it would have covered any possible religion except for atheism. Yeah, and oops.
right. Whoops.
Right. Make sure she's pregnant before you ask. That it's the same. It seems like that's the level of embarrassment that he was going through.
Now, your bio says that you were standing in the rubble of your home after the incident, and you were being proselytized to by volunteers. Tell us about that. Was that a real issue with the rescue effort that was there in Oklahoma?
That every street corner there were people proselytizing. They had their signs and they had posters, and they were standing on the street corners with their God posters and everything. It was a hard experience for me. I was going through the destroyed belongings of my kid whenever she said what church do you go to? And I said, I don't go to church. And she said, you're raising this baby without Jesus.
Oh my.
And yeah. And and she's this baby, like this disdain that she had, you're raising this baby without Jesus. And I was just so disgusted because I'm like trying to process all these emotions of letting go of all of this stuff that, I thought I'd keep forever. And so my response was just, yep.
Just like you are, lady. You just...
and without Zeus either.
Right?
Yeah, right. And so it was just, it was a pretty painful experience. And, it was very shaping, that moment, because she continued on for 30 minutes trying to convert me. And that was whenever I was like, oh my gosh, if we have atheist volunteers in the house of a Christian right now trying to tell them that they're wrong, they need to stop doing that right away. This is wrong. What's going on here where she thinks that she can come and put her world all over me because my whole life is destroyed? This is so wrong. She was like trying to capitalize on the opportunity to get her opinion into my head while I was, sifting through the rubble of my house. It was really messed up. So.
Yeah, and it happens everywhere. I didn't have a disaster, but when we did move into a new neighborhood, the neighbors came across and said, the same thing. Where do you go to church? And when you say you don't go to church, you get the blank stare. And she just turned around 180 and marched away from me. How did that seem to lead you to this effort with the foundation and organizing humanist disaster relief? Tell us about the transition there.
Yeah, so what ended up happening was as she was proselytizing to me, like I kept trying to escape into my head. I couldn't tell her to go away because I needed her help and there was nobody else there and I really needed her. So I kept escaping into my head into like a little fantasy. I was like, I'm going to volunteer. I'm going to find wherever, whatever atheist group does this, and I'm going to go help them, and I'm going to make sure that they're not doing this on the ground. And so throughout the whole experience, I think that this already exists. I'm just like, clearly it exists because it's necessary in life to be able to handle tragedies. Like it just seems like it would seem ridiculous for that not to exist in a non-theistic form.
Sure.
So the whole time I was escaping into my head into thinking I would just help some group that already existed. But whenever I got home that night, well, not my home, but like a friend's home, I started trying to find it. And I just kept thinking I was putting the wrong Google terms in. I'm just like, am I just not Google? Like, what am I doing? Is it got some weird name or something? you know, like, right, like point of light or something, or, they have, all these kinds of names. But anyway, once I finally talked to a few, atheist speakers about it, and they're like, yeah, it doesn't exist. And I was like, what? And I wouldn't let it go, because that just seemed kind of insane that it didn't exist. And I was like, well, if I said I wanted to volunteer, I guess I'll just have to spend my time volunteering to make it exist rather than volunteering on the ground right away. And then that's what's been going on ever since. I basically started talking to people until I found Foundation Beyond Belief, and they already had a focus on volunteers, and they already had a focus on disaster relief. And so I approached them about combining the ideas into disaster volunteers, and have been working on that with them ever since.
Perfect transition to Noelle.
And actually, I will give you another perfect transition. Okay. As it turns out, I had approached Dale McGowan about this, and he said that Noelle George had previously spoken to him about taking the organization in that direction.
Fantastic.
And put me in touch with her.
Fantastic.
Isn't that wonderful?
Yeah, it is. That's great synergy there. Noelle George is the executive director of the Foundation Beyond Belief, and we're getting to the sequence of events here. The foundation existed before Rebecca doing other stuff, and Rebecca was maybe a catalyst for a bigger humanist recovery effort. Is that a fair assessment, Noelle?
Yes, that's definitely a fair assessment. We couldn't be doing what we are now doing without Rebecca. She's volunteered hundreds of hours into this project, and she's right that I had talked to Dale about this prior to speaking with her, but when we first started talking and she had said she wanted to do this, and I was like, I want to do this, and she's like, I want to do this too, and we're like, okay, let's do this. So it was very much a meeting of the minds, and we had a lot of similar views about where we wanted to take it, and so it was kind of an immediate synergy of, okay, we're going to do this.
Fantastic. Take us to the beginning of the foundation, though, before any of this happened, and just give us a little background. Pretend we're just a couple of boneheads with mouths, which we are, and tell us about Foundation Beyond Belief,
too hard.
Origins and whatnot. Go ahead.
Okay, the foundation was founded in 2009 by Dale McGowan. He envisioned an organization that would kind of take humanism to the next level and unite humanists in charitable giving. And the original program of the foundation is the Humanist Giving Program, where we feature 5 beneficiaries a quarter, and we research them, we vet them very carefully, and then our members contribute monthly to these beneficiaries, and we switch the beneficiaries every quarter. 100% of the money that our members donate is passed through to the beneficiaries, and so we give 5 charities grants every quarter. The categories are human rights, the natural world, education, poverty and health, and challenge the gap. And originally we started with 10 categories and then brought it back down to 5, I think somewhere in 2011. So this is the original program of the foundation. And Challenge the Gap didn't start right away, but let me just talk about that for a minute. That is a religious identity organization that is completely secular. They don't proselytize. And so, for example, now we're featuring Texas Muslim Women's Foundation. So they have a Muslim identity as far as their worldview, but they work for the greater good. They help victims of domestic violence, and they'll help anyone who needs help, and they don't proselytize or try to convert people to Islam. So Challenge the Gap is about working to find common ground with people who are religious. So it can be a wonderful program. And when our members donate quarterly or monthly to our beneficiaries, they're allowed to choose. So it's kind of a customizable thing. So if somebody doesn't like Challenge the Gap, or they want all their money to go to human rights, or they want to split it some different way, they can split it however they want.
That's a good idea too. And the more and more like what you were saying, they may not even realize what they're doing and proselytizing at the wrong time. So this challenge of the gap is interesting in that, okay, we shouldn't be doing this. You know, that,
Right.
that you can have a religious organization that with a secular aim.
Right.
And that's helpful. And to me, it's always been odd that, you know, it's in the scriptures, it's the person that puts in 1 penny when no one's looking that's more valuable than, you know, the tons of money when everyone's looking. It seems like, you know, why indicate that you're religious at all? You know, that it sounds like you're playing. But that's a great idea.
Thank you.
Interesting.
Yes, and the idea is that we can support values that we have in common. We don't have to agree on everything, and we definitely don't agree on everything. But, you know, when we talk to, like I just talked to Texas Muslim Women's Foundation, to a representative from there, and we had a great conversation about the things that we had in common. And, you know, we agreed to disagree on the theological part of it, but as far as helping people, you know, Challenge the Gap really kind of rewards religion for doing it right in those cases where they are. And it really lets them know that, hey, we recognize that you're doing good work, and they appreciate that, and it bridges divides, and that's why it's called Challenge the Gap.
That's cool. It also takes secularism has become a dirty word for, you know, certain religious organizations, and in a way, just
I was
going to
bring that up because they're obviously a real emphasis on the word humanism and humanist, and I think that's done on purpose. Correct me if I'm wrong, Noelle, but the word atheist obviously offends people, upsets people, and even secular. But humanism we can see as something that religious people can get on board with as a you know, a common tool that everybody can get behind.
Right. Well, and, you know, I call myself a humanist atheist because I do personally like the word atheist because it says something about my beliefs, but or lack thereof. But the humanist also says something, and for me, I can't have one without the other, so I use both.
Well, kudos for that. We love that you embrace that. Is the marketing, though, I'm guessing is specific.
Yeah,
to use
humanist.
The word humanism. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. I mean, there are a lot of reasons that they chose it in the beginning, but mostly that, you know, humanism is about helping others. It's about the fact that, you know, secular humanism is about the fact that we don't believe there's anyone out there taking care of us, and so we have to do it for each other. So I think that's what humanism is all about.
Right. Don't rely on a guardian angel. Be someone's guardian angel in that way.
And to that end, you guys have raised what, almost $2 million, 2,000 members or so. Really, you know, we feel great about what we're doing here, and but an effort like that to raise $2 million and 100% to the what am I saying the right word? Benefactors, the people who need it. Is that rare to get for that 100% to get through? Is that rare in the charity world?
It is rare, and it's definitely been a challenge to continue doing that. We only raise money once a year for ourselves, for our operational costs, and that we're doing that right now. So it's actually perfect timing that you guys are having us on, that we can talk about that, and we can talk about our other programs as well, the Beyond Belief Network and the Humanist Service Corps. But, you know, Rebecca is handling the Humanist disaster teams, and they're actually going to have their first deployment here in January, so that's pretty exciting too.
It is exciting, and I noticed in the marketing, you guys have already mounted the first humanist relief effort specifically. Is that correct?
We are in the process of doing that, and the first deployment is January 3rd through the 9th. Isn't that right,
you're
Rebecca?
About the same thing.
It's the 2nd through the 9th, but we'll be starting to volunteer on the 3rd. The 2nd's just going to be orientation.
All right, fair enough. Tell us more about the fundraising itself. How do you guys do it? Who are you looking for, to donate, and how does it work?
Okay. The fundraising, we're actually doing it through Razoo this year. They have offered to waive their platform fees for us through the end of the year. And so we have a link on our site at www.foundationbeyondbelief.org. We actually have a match this year. Up to $20,000 is matched by the Bella and Stella Foundation. And so anyone can give any amount. There are prizes that we have available. There's going to be a drawing for some swag and some other prizes. We have some special Foundation Beyond Belief logo beer glasses that are one of the prizes. And so anyone can give who is inspired by our work. And we really need everyone's help to keep the lights on for next year. This is the only time that we fundraise for ourselves at the end of the year. So, and to double your money like that is a good opportunity, I think.
It is a good opportunity. Again, that's foundationbeyondbelief.org. We're looking at it right now. It's a nice looking website. Go there and donate. You're listening to the Mythicist Milwaukee show. We're talking today to the executive director of the Foundation Beyond Belief. It's Noelle George and tornado atheist Rebecca Vitsmun. Is that the moniker, the handle you've been given?
The whirlwind?
Yeah. I got called Atheist Tornado Girl. Somebody said it should be like a comic.
ATG.
Superhero. Yeah.
Got a good cape.
So tell me about why is it that there's so many atheists that we deal with in Texas and Oklahoma? I can't believe that those states are so damn religious. Where it's funny to me that we hear Aaron Ra and what's it like actually living in? I know you haven't been there that long now, Noelle, but is it? Do you have to take a backlash for what you do in the neighborhood?
Actually, while not a lot of people know, I'm just in the process of moving this weekend, and I went outside for a walk with my husband and daughter, and the first people we meet have the crosses on them. Both couples, the woman had the cross in one couple and the man had the cross in the other couple, and I'm thinking, oh, geez, we're going to be those crazy, atheists there in the corner, and and but so we're just in the process of moving, so I don't know a lot of people. But actually, I'll give you a little history. I moved to Texas in 2004 from Seattle, and I never really thought about it that much in Seattle. And as soon as I moved to Texas, people started saying, where do you go to church? Where do you go to church? And I started feeling the need to be around people like me because there were just so few people like me. And I think that being around such a religious environment, such an overtly religious environment where people pretty much assume that you're religious, it makes you want to be around people like you that much more. But I was in Texas until a couple years ago. About 3 years ago, I moved to Korea. And in Korea, I got proselytized to on the street more than I ever did in Texas.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
By Christians?
Yes, by Christians. And I think they assumed, because Korea is an Asian country and I'm white and I look different than most people there, I think that might have been part of it. They might have assumed that because I was white, I was religious. But, they would chase after me on the street.
Well, and they weren't food vendors. They weren't trying to sell you food. They were
they were selling religion.
Tourist goodies.
Okay.
They were definitely, they would hand me the pamphlet or whatever. They would say, I wanted to talk to you because sometimes in Korea, students will get an English-speaking assignment, so they'll go up to tourists and ask them if they could ask them questions. So the religious people, I think, have, they kind of trick you by kind of starting out the same way. Oh, I was wondering if I could ask you a few questions. And you think it's somebody practicing your homework, and then all of a sudden it's like, do you have God in your life? Do you feel secure in your life? Do you ever feel worried about things? And then they kind of get into, well, if you have God in your life, you won't feel worried about things.
While we're on the subject, I'm interested in why, and I wouldn't have any idea about this other than that the immigrant population here of Koreans they have their Christian churches, and we notice that. We see signs, the services in Korean, this and that. How is South Korea so Christian? Is that down to missionaries? Do you have any idea?
It's getting more Christian, I think, but really South Korea is about a third Christian, a third Buddhist, and a third atheist. And I did meet quite a few Korean atheists.
Oh, okay. Well, so it's not so overwhelmingly religious.
No,
it's actually
it's
pretty
just,
decent, a third atheist.
yeah, but they're pushing it really hard over there because you do get approached a lot on the street.
Right. In the influence in the 50s with the American Army and the Korean War, I suspect.
Yeah, the communist
helps.
backlash against the godless communists and.
Well, right, as a hedge. Remember that
Sure.
there's not been a peace treaty, so technically those two nations are still at war.
Still at war, yeah.
Yes, that's true. And I did get the chance to go to North Korea, and it was quite interesting.
Wow.
For real. Wow, that is scary. You got to tell us about
Yeah,
that.
give us the story.
If I had to manage across the border, my knuckles would be white.
Well, it sounds a lot more interesting than it actually was, but you can take a tour with the USO, or, it's military escorted, and you go on a bus and you go to several different sites around the border. We went in a tunnel that the North Koreans had blasted out to try to get to South Korea, and we were able to go through that tunnel and kind of look at the spot where they have the big barricade there now.
Oh, incredible. The DMZ, the demilitarized zone there.
Yeah, the DMZ and the DMZ. And then we went right to the place, the line where the DMZ divides North and South Korea. And this is the only place that civilians can safely cross the border without being on like some kind of a special party or whatever. Like, I have a friend who would go into North Korea. She's a nurse on medical missions, but for me, I just had a military escort, and we just went to this little road that had a bunch of buildings that all crossed the border. And we went into one of the buildings, and it's the only place that you can safely cross the border. And we just went over the line and within the building, and then came back. So,
okay. Still scary.
You could say you were in North Korea.
And the soldiers there, there's a lot of North Korean soldiers there and South Korean soldiers, and the South Korean soldiers have to stand for 4 hours in a very rigid position, and they can't move, and they have to look in the same direction. And it's very interesting. The guide would tell us at one point or another, he'd say, all right, you can't take pictures starting here, and I'll tell you when you can take pictures again. And he'd say, starting here, and then he'd say, okay, you can take pictures again. And he'd confiscate your camera if you took pictures somewhere that you weren't supposed to.
Wow.
In some ways, the most religious country in the world, worshiping the almighty leader.
Right.
Remember, but the birds sung in Korean, on his death or at his birth or something. I mean, come on.
Yes, the sun created him specifically for mankind, right?
So,
crazy stuff.
Wow. Then now I noticed that on your that it said for Q4 there was $5,805 like raised to date. Is that part of the current fundraiser that's going on? And are you guys really just taking things inbound, or are you reaching outbound? Is there any humanist person that said, I don't like the atheism part, that I wouldn't give to this effort because of that? We wondered if there's any pushback, or they're just, we like what you're doing.
No, we really don't get a lot of pushback. Funny story, we did have somebody come to us and say, I'm not going to donate to you anymore because you support Hillary Clinton. And I was like, we're a 501c3. We can't endorse candidates or really get involved in politics.
Or risk losing said 501c3, exactly.
Right. So I was like, so we emailed her back and said, oh, could you let us know what gave you that impression? Because we'd really like to know. We were curious, but of course we never heard back. So, by and large, we have a lot of support. It's really wonderful. Prior to working at Foundation Beyond Belief, and I started as a volunteer like Rebecca, I founded a volunteer charity here in Texas that I then merged into Foundation Beyond Belief pretty early on. And we did have occasion where we wanted to go volunteer somewhere, and they said, we don't want you atheists coming to volunteer with us. Wow. But that was back in 2009, 2010. Things are starting to get better. There's still a lot of vitriol out there in some ways. And that's one reason that we do our work, is that we want people to know that, hey, just because we're atheists, that doesn't mean that we don't care about our community. We don't care about the world. And I personally think that the more that we contribute in a positive way, the more people are going to be willing to hear what we have to say about other things, because we're a valued member of the community.
Nicely put. I'm glad you brought that up, because we do the same thing on our doing what we can around here, and we feel like with all the good things we do, part of what that is to raise awareness for the secular community. We're not evil Satan worshipers. We care about the community, as you so eloquently put, and we're here to help just like everybody else. So I think you're right. I think we see it in food kitchens and around this holiday time of the year, a lot of volunteer drives by the churches and stuff. And you get there. Oh, we don't want you. We don't want to ally with your local atheist group. And I feel like the more that we do it, the less stigma there is. So thanks for all that great work.
It's so important for local groups, local atheist groups and humanist groups and whatever label they want to use, to get out there in their community. And we have another program that I haven't mentioned yet called Beyond Belief Network. And it's a network of those local groups that are getting out there into their community and doing community service. We have over 110 groups in the network, and they've donated over 90,000 hours of community service.
Nice.
What kind of things are you seeing them do? Like,
food, like dinner kitchens, food banks, park cleanups, environmental type cleanups, lake cleanups and ocean cleanups and highway cleanups. Let's see, collecting, even things like collecting canned food, raising money for different organizations they do. There's a Minnesota group that does a baseball game every year. The St. Paul Aints, or the St. Paul Saints become the Mr. Paul Aints.
One more time? I'm slow today.
The St. Paul Saints in Minneapolis, St. Paul, become the Mr. Paul Aints. They get secularized.
All right.
For a day, and that's a great fundraiser.
That's neat. That's a good gimmick. We should think of something like that.
And the great thing about the network is that they're sharing ideas, and it's sometimes being a leader can be a little lonely because you're trying to think of everything, and you might have trouble finding volunteers, and I think it helps the leaders to get together and share ideas.
No doubt. Yeah, I think the local communities, the groups, I think number one is always try to recruit membership. That a lot of times the secular community has no place to go. We met new people last night that were just saying, we don't have anyone to talk to about this, and building that up, having a community that then allows money to come to bigger communities like you guys, that we can really push for that. Because some people ask locally, well, what can I do? And I think just joining your local groups and then giving to more established organizations like yours is a good way to do it too.
Well, it helps to feel part of something bigger, and you can talk about one event that's 5 hours or 5 volunteers or whatever, which is pretty decent in my experience. I've traveled all over the country talking to different groups about volunteering and leadership and things like that, and 5 to 10 people is a pretty decent turnout. But when you talk about 110 groups doing community service, and you talk about donating, over 90,000 hours, or donating $2 million, like, people start to pay attention.
That's true, and that it's some real talking points, demonstrable data that when they say, then you must not care. You must not care about the rule of law. Atheism gets associated with anarchist all the time.
Right.
Then you don't believe in laws. Okay, well, come on.
And the problem is global. And MM members recently worked with Feeding Mouths, Filling Minds to send a team to Africa for charity work, and ran into an atheist in Kenya, Harrison Mumia, and his great group atheists in Kenya, who face indoctrination on a ridiculous scale. We noticed that you guys yourself have worked in Uganda. You want to tell us about the Uganda effort a little bit?
Well, right now we're in Ghana. Connor's Humanist Service Corps program is in Ghana. We have Connor and 4 other volunteers there in Ghana working in the witch camps. They're improving conditions in the witch camps for the accused witches they have a medical records program trying to help them get consistent medical care and make sure that that care is able to be archived and recorded. And they also have a clean water project, and they are also working with the community on sensitization, which is kind of trying to educate the community on why these accusations happen and trying to avoid these accusations in the future. So I'm really excited about this program because they're making a real difference in Ghana with the accused witches and outside the community as well.
Wow, I really thought we'd left that in Salem in 1692.
Tell us about the witch camp. Is that like a concentration camp where they put witches?
Well, what happens is that someone, usually an older woman who is successful, because of the culture there, something happens and that suspicion goes to the woman because she's successful and because she's older, and there's definitely a superstition of witchcraft there. So a woman will get accused of witchcraft, and because the society is misogynist, if she doesn't have a strong male to vouch for her, like if her husband has passed away or she doesn't have a son or whatever, then she really has no power to fight that accusation, and she has to leave her community, sometimes with her daughters, and go to one of these camps. And a lot of times the woman will go voluntarily to be, quote, rehabilitated, hoping that they can come back to their community. But a lot of times the community doesn't believe that the rehabilitation works, and so the woman is stuck in the witch camp.
I've never heard of a witch. That is really, really bizarre.
This is very much like Salem. I mean, that jealous kid accusing for no reason other than jealousy. We don't like that person. This would be a great way to drive out your competitor.
Right.
Wow.
And just accuse them. Yeah, that is not good. So, and the alternative, what is if they don't go to the camps, you could be killed?
I haven't heard of that. I don't think that it happens that they don't go to the camps, because honestly, I don't even know what would happen if they didn't go.
Okay, but so it's a shunning of sorts. Either do this, or we'll kick you out of the community.
Wow.
Right.
Rebecca, has this ever taken you out of the country yet?
No. I'm a mother to a 4-year-old son, and so the most time that I can get away is actually going to be this deployment coming up. I'm going to be gone for 10 days, and that's going to be a long time for my child.
Kid's got to be. We saw him on TV. He was just a baby, so he's 4 now.
Yeah,
put a shovel in his hand. What's the problem? I think it's probably an unsafe environment for 4-year-olds. What, cholera-ridden streams and hurricane
Maybe.
and earthquake rubble everywhere.
He skimmed over the child labor laws.
A lot of my volunteer time is luckily stuff that I can do online from home each night. There were weeks there for a while where I was doing 20 hours week after week after week after he would go to bed at night. And so we're getting to a point now where those kinds of things aren't as necessary for the program because it's basically built. And so, but now comes the days on the road where I'll be volunteering in a community. So that'll be interesting. But no, I'm not going to be able to do a full year for quite some time.
Well, your whole experience sort of parallels ours.
It'd be interesting if sometime in the future, maybe after he graduates from high school, if he and I would do a year together on some kind of program like that. That sounds really cool.
Well, just to teach him the altruistic values that you're exhibiting as a humanist is a great thing, and a lesson to all parents out there everywhere. A really important part of bringing up kids is to give them that sense of community service. But I wanted to ask you if this, much like us here, we're just, like I said, we're just small timers putting on conventions and having speakers come in. We're not rescuing survivors like you guys, but we encountered the same thing. There was no community. We've created it. We take the abuse, we get the ostracization in our neighborhood, and it's also been incredibly fulfilling and rewarding what we've been doing. Has the whole thing transformed your life since that day on TV with Wolf?
Definitely. Definitely. You know, I honestly, I used to volunteer a tremendous amount in high school. I even won an award. It was a national award from the oldest and largest volunteer organization for high schoolers out there, Key Club. I won their most prestigious award they give out, it's called the Sandy Nininger Award. But anyway, it's for whoever's, you know, contributing the most in the organization. And so it was definitely something that I've always had a passion for, volunteering, but I had gotten away from it in adulthood because, you know, there were fewer paths, and the paths that were available were just not things that I was interested in. And I don't think I've ever been so driven to just go create a path before. It's always been, oh, that's a path that's available, but I'm not interested in it. And now it's so strange to go create a path. Now I kind of feel like any path that I ever wanted to create, I could create. And I kind of feel like anybody could really do that. And it's so, like, if I ever hear somebody say, well, this isn't available, I was like, make it. You can do it, you know?
Right.
It really just takes doing it. You know, you can. It's something that can be done.
Well said. She's Rebecca Vitsmun. She is the Humanist Disaster Recovery Team's Development Coordinator. Does that even fit on a business card?
You know, I put HDR team. HDR team's development coordinator, or I might even short it to dev. So HDR team's dev coordinator. And
Noelle George is with us too, the executive director of Foundation Beyond Belief. Our guest today on the Mythicist Milwaukee show. It's about 40 minutes in. It's time for a little segment we like to call Myth of the Day, because we are mythicists. We're about mythologies. And today, sitting in for Mythmeister Antonio is producer extraordinaire Sean Farasek with Myth of the Day. Take it away, Sean.
I have some big shoes to fill today with Antonio not being here. Yeah, literally.
Yeah, literally.
I just wanted to say while I got on here, thank you to Rebecca and Noelle for what you guys are doing. The you know, having been in Kenya and on the ground in the villages and Gong in these really underdeveloped areas, it's not easy work. You know, it's when you're in underdeveloped areas or like disaster areas, it's really a challenge. And for you guys to take that head on and create a foundation around it, I mean, thank you so much for doing that. If you haven't done it, it's hard to imagine some of the living conditions, let's just say, that you have to go through. So thank you for doing that, guys. The myth of the day today. So we're going to talk about the myth of Christmas. So popular belief is that Jesus died and all of a sudden we were celebrating Christmas. Actually, Christmas wasn't really celebrated till the 4th century. And actually, the early Christian church fathers deemed it a sin to celebrate birthdays. So I have a quote here from Origen. He lived 184 to 253, and he says, in the scripture, no one is recorded to have kept a feast or held a great banquet on his birthday. It is only sinners like Pharaoh and Herod who make great rejoicing over the day in which they were born into this world. So as people are celebrating Christmas this year, let's just remember what the early church fathers thought about celebrating birthdays. That is your myth of the day.
Well done. We like it.
Thank you, Sean. Myth of the day. Myth of the day brought to you by Kenosha Racine Atheists and Free Thinkers Activism in Southeast Wisconsin. And the Mythicist Milwaukee show is engineered by awesome Jason Lawson.
Right. I think the nickname goes in the middle. Jason Awesome
Jason
Lawson.
Awesome Lawson, yeah. Or just get rid of the Jason.
Doesn't
Make a movie
really roll
Awesome
off the
Lawson
tongue.
and like Action Jackson. It's not really a rhyme either. It's one of those sort of rhymes. Foundation Beyond Belief. Tell us what is the number one thing you're pushing right now, Noelle. Once again, the people they can go to foundationbeyondbelief.org. But what would you say is the number one iron in the fire right now?
I would say the deployment that's happening in January. This is our first HDR team's deployment. We're going to South Carolina. We're going to Columbia, South Carolina, and we've got how many volunteers, Rebecca? 10 volunteers coming to help us?
Yes,
Yeah.
10 volunteers. This time is going to be really testing the systems. They're going to be our guinea pig first deployment, and they get to tell us that we did everything right.
Is this for hurricane repair then that recently have gone through?
What happened in Carolina?
This is from the flooding. There was pretty massive flooding, and right now they're going through a rebuild effort. We're going to be working on rebuilding homes. The volunteers will be working on things like flooring, mudding, hanging sheetrock, texturing, painting, things like that. And there's, it's going to be a really cool team. We've got a pretty wide age span that I'm really excited about, as young as 14 and as old as 68 on the team. And so it's going to be really fun.
Now, can people still get in on this, or is it kind of set up?
Yeah, they can. If we still have a couple of spots available, we want to take 10 to 15. It looks like we're going to hit our 10, but we still have space for more. If anybody wants to get involved, they can go to foundationbeyondbelief.org/HDR teens.
Wow,
you heard it here.
And the thing is, sometimes it's hard for people to kind of get interested in something because the flooding happened a while ago, and it's not an immediate response type situation. But we felt that it was really important for us to do kind of a first deployment, a test deployment, to see how things go, work out all the kinks. This is the responsible way to do it. It's a really important first step toward, deploying when it is a time-sensitive situation. So, people might think, oh, when did that happen? And, why are they going there? But, it's our first deployment. And so we're just kind of testing all the systems, make sure we have a green light and we're ready to go when something does happen.
Right. I think what you're doing is really good, not only for the people that you're going to be helping, cleaning up flooding. I imagine there's got to be a basement or two that's unusable. But also, I often will get the question, well, can't you just give 1 hour a week to God? And atheists are selfish for that reason. They say you're not, or undisciplined. And you're showing, you took those 52 hours a week, if you went to church every Sunday, and repurposed them. Just those 52 hours, really, you've got the best hedge against that. And I think you're making us all look better, which is good. And it's nice to see, somebody who can really back that up.
The other thing that I would mention that is something that's really critical for us right now is the fundraising drive. So I know you said one thing, but...
No, plug it.
Yeah. But, if people want to see us continue to fight against accused witchcraft in Ghana, if they want to see us continue to provide an alternative to proselytizing, at someone's most vulnerable moment. I don't know if you can swear on this program.
Yeah, go ahead.
How shitty do you have to be to take someone at their most vulnerable moment when they've lost everything and try to come in and say, you're not raising your child this way or that way, or you don't believe and this is why that's happened to you. That's just unconscionable in my opinion.
Yeah, it's a real ambulance chaser.
The thing is, what?
It's a real ambulance chaser kind of mentality. You're right.
Right. And the thing is, there's been no alternative out there. There's not been a way, for atheists and humanists and people who are secular to get out there and volunteer the way that we are starting to create that program. Like Rebecca said, she searched for it and she couldn't find anything. And so, if people want to see us continue to do that, if they want to see us continue to support local groups doing volunteering, we provide T-shirts to those groups. We provide grants, $250 to $500 to those groups in the Beyond Belief Network. If they want to continue to see us donate another $2 million to charity, we don't ask for ourselves very often. We do it once a year. We're trying to raise $100,000, and we've still got a ways to go. So if you've been inspired by anything that you've heard today, please consider giving a donation, $10, $25, $50, whatever you can afford.
Right, which will also be matched by the Bella and Stella Foundation for this month, right? Is that correct, too?
Correct.
So you can give twice as much without actually having to give twice as much.
Brian's been paying attention. That's why we have him. That's why we have him on board.
Well, and well done on getting the bell.
Really?
That probably wasn't just a simple phone call to get them to match, so that's great.
It seems like you guys have a huge effort, really, when you look at the website and all the things you've mentioned just here on the program in 40 minutes, 45 minutes, and there's way more than the two of you involved. You're the executive director, and Rebecca's the H-Dirt, what is it? The H-Dirt team? She's got the Human Disaster ITs. Who else is involved in the foundation? Our buddy Hammett Mehta down the road, is he on the board? We're trying to keep all the initials.
He is.
Straight.
He's on the board. Greta Christina's on the board. Jerry DeWitt's on the board. Trish Cowan. Claire Wellner is on the board. And Mandisa Thomas is on the board. And Zach Moore is the president of the board. He's with Fellowship of Free Thought in Dallas. We also have Bridget Gaudette as our development coordinator. AJ Shalom is our Humanist Giving Program coordinator. Wendy Weber of the Yale Humanist Community is our Beyond Belief Network coordinator. Connor Robinson is our Humanist Service Corps coordinator in Ghana. And we have a bunch of other people involved, as both as volunteers and as employees. We really operate on very little. We pass through over 50% of the money that we give is passed through to other organizations. So, we try to be very efficient, and we try to be as, as awesome as the charities that we vet, as far as our standards go, and just, operate kind of on a shoestring and do amazing things. And we've only been around. This January, it'll be 2010 was the first year that we launched any beneficiaries. So this will be our 6-year anniversary, and look at what we've accomplished in 6 years.
Oh, fantastic. Congratulations on that.
Do you have each of you have a favorite story of that with a personal touch that you particularly like? Maybe it's dealing with the witch camps or something else that you really felt was compelling.
Rebecca, you want to take that first?
Besides the wolf thing.
Well, one where that the outreach you really felt like, wow, that this is the reason we're doing it.
Oh, well, we haven't even deployed yet, honestly. And so for my job, mine's mostly been working behind the scenes, developing things. But if I was to pick something that the foundation's already doing, it would definitely be Beyond Belief Network. Blows me away. Because, they're about to hit 100,000 hours. And that's, just thinking about the magnitude of how much good's been done by 100,000 hours being put into local communities across the entire country. It just blows my mind every time I think about it.
That is a lot of hours. I'm actually going to compute how many years you're going to have to go in one church service here real quickly.
It is inspirational.
Yeah, do that.
Of course, we are producing the movie Batman and Jesus, and I want to plug our stuff here for a minute coming up this year. I want everybody to look for that. As well as finding us on Facebook, Twitter at Mythicist MKE. We're on Tumblr. We're on StumbleUpon. We're on Pinterest. Look at the Pinterest page if you enjoy the memes that go up and the stories of the mythologies that led us to modern day religions. Are the two of you mythicists? Do you believe, since you're both atheists like most of us are, but do you think there was a historical Jesus, or do you subscribe, or do you know anything about the Christ myth
I don't
theory?
feel... personally, I don't care whether or not there was a historical Jesus. I don't feel like it affects my life, whether or not he existed. His historical stories don't seem very historically written. If they are, they're not any better than a mythical book. And so, honestly, it doesn't really matter to me either way. If it's a work of fiction, then it's got good parts in it and bad parts in it, and it would be nice if people treated it like a fictional book that had good parts and bad parts.
Agreed.
What about you, Noelle?
There was a thing on Facebook that shows the religions, the 5 major religions of the world. It's like a map, and it shows them all spreading out. Have you guys seen that?
Yeah.
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 Actually have.
What I find really interesting is it shows you a little red dot where the birth of Jesus was, and it shows you a little red dot where Muhammad was, and I think it shows you a little red dot where Buddha was. But when you look at it in slow motion and you see the little red dot where Jesus was, and then Christianity starts, like Jesus is supposed to be in the Middle East, and then Christianity starts spreading in a completely different place. Whereas the other religions with Muhammad and with Buddha, they start spreading out from that location. And you would think that if there was really a Jesus, that it would start spreading from the location that Jesus was actually born instead of a completely different place.
Wow, nice observation there. I like that. I would have never thought of that one. That's good. Good point.
And as far as the story that you asked about,
yes.
I'm not, I wasn't involved with it directly, but I was just recently reading the Humanist Service Corps, some of the stuff that they put out, and they were telling about a lady who was sick. They went to interview her, and they gave them 10 cedis, which is about $2.50 for each interview. And when they promised that when they came back, they would bring her a mat to sleep on because she was sleeping on the hard floor in her hut, and she didn't have a mat. And when they came back, she was sick, and they brought the mat. Cleo brought the mat, and that's one of our volunteers. And the woman was sick, and she could hardly get up, but she wanted to dance because she was so happy that she had a mat to sleep on.
Nice. We only got about 4 minutes left. I want to change the subject a little bit and ask Noelle about your experiences with Mothers Beyond Belief and Secular Woman. If much has been made about sexism and the plight of women in our movement. From our perspective, we've met so many strong women in so many positions of authority that it's hard to get a feel for that. Tell us about that. What are your experiences as women? A quick answer from both of you in the secular movement in general. Has it been a little bit tough, or is it all right?
You know, when I went to my first leadership meeting, and when I first started going to conferences, I was there, and I was there professionally, and I didn't always get treated professionally. And I really thought, coming as an engineer, coming from the world of oil and gas, where I didn't always get treated professionally there either, I thought, well, I'm coming into the atheist movement, things are going to be different. And it wasn't really that different. And, I worked here in Texas, and I had people saying to me when I came down here as an engineer, wow, you came down here all by yourself? Where's your husband? Where's your parents? So that's been my experience in a nutshell.
And it's sad that a husband somehow validates you more. Don't get
right.
it, but yeah, regrettable, but we appreciate it.
Rebecca?
I do get asked where my husband is because he doesn't travel with me at all. But I do travel with my son, and so I do get that question. But I do feel like I came from Oklahoma, and they're so gender oriented there that to be in the movement and working in the movement is such a fresh air. It's so different that I might not even realize like ways in which it isn't, because I still have the rose tinted glasses on. But honestly, to go from working in Oklahoma to working in the movement, it's staggering how hard the movement works. Like, they'll even point it out. Like, they'll start pointing out ways in which they can improve, and then they'll actually start working towards those goals. There's an active movement to get more women involved and to treat women more equally. And there are a lot of people who are voicing those things constantly, and I really appreciate that I'm part of that.
Nice. All right. Well,
Two different women, two different experiences.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It sounds like a little bit of both.
Yeah, women are not a monolithic.
Yeah.
Men are still jerks, but the movement's all right.
No. I didn't get into the movement until 2013, and Noelle came in way, many years before me too. So she's also definitely going to have a different experience.
All right. Well, our hour is about up. They're going to cut us off in 20 seconds. You've been listening to the Mythicist Milwaukee Show, and thanks so much to the Foundation Beyond Belief today, Rebecca Vitsmun, Tornado Atheist.
Yes.
And Noelle George, the Executive Director. Join us in 2 weeks for Frank Zindler. We're off for the holidays, and happy solstice, everybody. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.